What is up, my entertainment junkies, and we are back with another reaction, this time a Legal Eagle reaction, and rights you didn't know you had, and probably don't want. I've watched about a quarter of this video already. He made some good points, and I remember there was something that I wanted to stop and that made me want to stop and put this on the channel, but we'll see what that is when we get to it.
We tend to think of laws as restrictions, things that you can't do, or things that you're forced to do against your will. Clean up your room, stand up straight, pick up your feet, take it like a man, be nice to your sister, don't mix beer and wine ever, and
Wow. That seems to have a little bit of projection, doesn't it?
oh yeah,
Don't drive on the railroad track.
That's one I happen to agree with.
but did you know that sometimes the law can actually lift these restrictions and give you freedoms to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do? Yes, sometimes the law can give you rights that you don't even know about. Not that you'd necessarily want to use some of these rights, but still, let's talk about some of those rights that you didn't know you had.
Do.
Sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula. Now, warning, restrictions
All right.
may apply. Please see your doctor before attempting any of these freedoms, and more importantly, please consult with your attorney.
Okay,
So
3
let's
years
kick things
ago,
off with
so-
a woman's right to go topless.
So 3 years ago, so some things may have changed. Also, if there is a sponsor or ad, this video is 3 years old. I am not sitting through it.
In 2015, the Fort Collins City Council enacted a public nudity ordinance banning women from removing their shirts in public. I'm not going to read the whole statute. You can do that yourselves, but obviously the law bans women from doing something
10 years old or older. I'm gonna let the jokes yeah, y'all just imagine the jokes for that one.
allowed to do. A women's group sued the city, arguing that a female-only topless ban violated the Equal Protection Clause. How did the city defend
Technically,
the ban? Well, for starters, it
that is
argued
right.
that men and women's chests were totally different, which
Which
means
is also
women,
different.
quote, have a hallowed sexual status in Western culture. The city tried hard to make it
To be fair, women sexualize men's abs, so... Do I want this to go around nationwide? I'm gonna put it this way. If this does happen, then there's a potential that you see your sister topless, so... Take it as you will.
sound as if this reasoning was based on something other than stereotypes, but this did not go over particularly well. For a gender-based classification to survive a legal challenge, the government needs to show, quote, an exceedingly persuasive justification that the classification is necessary. That classification must serve, quote, an important...
Alright. Let's put it this way. You go around the entire state, ask every man, do you jack off to boobs? They all say yes. Oh, it is a sexualized thing. Hell, ask all the women because half of them probably say yes. But it's a sexualized thing, therefore it should be treated differently. 2, let's treat it like the Bruin decision. Where, if it's a right, it needs to have a... If it's a restriction, it needs to have historical evidence prior to, after the founding of the nation. And guess what? It's always been illegal. This is a new thing where it shouldn't be, where people say it shouldn't be illegal. So it would hold up to the Bruin argument.
governmental objective through means, quote, substantially related to achieving those objectives. What objectives did the ban serve? Well, Fort Collins said it served 2 main purposes. First, the city's ban would protect children from seeing a female breast, because obviously that's not the defining characteristic of a mammal, and mammalian children never see a female breast in their entire lives. And second, it would prevent general lawlessness, especially traffic problems that may occur when people see a topless woman in public. Yes, men can't control themselves, so let's limit what women can do. The court made quick work of the...
Two things can be right at the same time. Victim blaming is actually a legitimate thing because if you're dressed like a hooker and then someone comes and tries to hire you to be a hooker, you pretty much did that to yourself. So, while it's not right to victim blame, it kind of is your fault if something bad happens to you. In a lot of cases. Regrettably, there are still a lot of cases where it was absolutely nothing that the person could have done and it still happened, so.
City's reasoning. Although other courts have decided this differently, the 10th Circuit thought this was bunk and that women's rights were being violated. Fort Collins spent $300,000 on this case and then decided to throw in the towel rather than appealing it to the Supreme Court. So if you live in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, Kansas, and Oklahoma, you can take your shirt off outside, no matter who you are. The right to get married by proxy. Most people are familiar with the process for getting hitched. Get it?
Yeah. This one, I actually agree, should be legal everywhere. I mean, granted, if you're going to get married, you have to make time, but let's say one person just got into a car accident. They are in the hospital, they can't make the wedding. Or both people got into a car, where they were both driving in the same car, riding in the same car, and then they got in a car accident, both of them ended up in the hospital. Neither of them can go to the wedding. So what? It gets canceled and they have to call off the whole wedding and they have to replay and everything?
Get a marriage license, have a ceremony, file the completed license with the state, discover irreconcilable differences, hire a lawyer, exact your revenge, wish you were dead, get divorced, and repeat. Ha! But did you know it's possible to get married without showing up for the wedding itself? Well, if you're overseas in the military or just have something better to do that day, someone else can actually stand in for you in many different states. This is known as a proxy marriage because someone stands in for the other party to take the vows. To do this, you need to authorize your agent to get married on your behalf. Now, most states allow a proxy marriage where one person can't be present, but in Montana, a wedding can take place without either party being present. This is what's called a double proxy marriage. Now, to qualify for a double proxy wedding in Montana, at least one party must be on active duty in the military or a resident of Montana at the time of the application for the license. Why would someone want to do this, you ask? Other than the obvious reason that you actually love this person? Well, cold hard cash, obviously. For service members, marriage can be a...
Oh yeah, this is a real big thing in the military among enlisted, especially lower enlisted. We call them contract marriages. Because as much as I shit on the military not getting paid enough, which I still believe they don't, they do have a pretty good gig. They get paid, starting out coming in, $40,000 a year, $37,000 a year. But they also don't have to pay for food, lodging, unless something's changed. Food, lodging, or utilities. You don't even have to go to the laundromat. They have washing machines in the same building that you live in. But you have to live at the barracks. Those places are shit. And weekly room inspections are a pain in the ass. So, what military members do is, if you get married, you can either live on base, and you get extra money for food, or you can live off base, you get extra money for food, and you get extra money for housing. Which, if you're smart enough, you can actually not use all that housing money and save a shit ton of money. But, and you don't get inspected either, whether you're living on base or off base. So what military members would do is, they would marry each other to get themselves out of the barracks. And, yeah. Contract marriage.
Great fun.
Also, fun fact, it is against the UCMJ, which is the military, pretty much the military specific laws, to have any sex in any position that is not missionary. Gay people can't have missionary sex.
Financial arrangement. The Army will actually increase your pay by at least $1,200 a month once you're married. Now, the Montana marriage law was first passed in the 1860s when men poured into the area to work in the mines. The miners didn't have the time or the money to travel home to get their fiancés, so the state passed a law allowing ceremonies to take place without either person being present. Proxy marriage isn't just for the military, though. Some states allow prisoners to get married through a proxy. In 1987, the Supreme Court case known as Turner versus Safley granted prisoners the constitutional right to marry. However, the right to marry is also subject to reasonable prison regulations, as long as the regulations are, quote, reasonably related to legitimate penological interests. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Ah, come on. We're all just trying to have a good time.
This means prisons can do all
what's
sorts
the
of
joke
things
there?
to delay or prevent marriages. In 2013, Texas simply outlawed proxy marriages, including for inmates. Their main concern was that people were marrying just to convey benefits. And that kind of fraudulent arrangement was featured on the popular reality show Love After Lockup, where a doofus named Vince was going to marry...
I hate all of these reality TV shows like this. It's just stupid stuff like this. 30 Day Fiance, the one where they get married and one of them's overseas. They're all just so fucking stupid. The Bachelor. Ugh. Keeping Up the Kardashians. Fucking horse. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah.
marry ex-inmate Amber and adopt her girlfriend, Puppy, as some sort of insurance and pension scheme.
I'm a bold mother.
Though 3 years later, the state reversed itself after advocates pointed out that the law was in direct conflict with Turner versus Safley. The right to an annulment if you get married on a dare. So you have the right to get married without being present at the ceremony.
That's a thing? I think this is what I stopped at. I completely forgot about this part of the video. Yeah, this is probably exactly what made me want to put it as a reaction.
Fantastic. But what if your best friend Double Dog dares you to get married to that hose beast over there, and like Marty McFly, you follow through on the dare, then you sober up, look at your bride or groom...
That's why I wanted to react to this video. My problem with marriages is if you're drunk and you get married like in Vegas, marriage is a contract. If you're drunk, you cannot consent to sexually, therefore you shouldn't be able to any contract should be null and void since you weren't in the right mind, or I don't remember the exact wording for it, whenever you signed it.
Next to you and say, oh no, I got married because someone dared me to. You know, that old chestnut.
Yeah, he'll probably bring up what I mean.
Got it a week after we started dating.
Well, relax, because if you live in Delaware or Colorado, getting married on a dare is grounds for an annulment.
Okay, no, stop. Why not Nevada? That is literally where Vegas is.
And unlike divorce, an annulment treats the marriage as if it never existed. Annulments are usually only available if there was fraud or coercion or illegality at the time of the marriage. But Delaware and Colorado include a got married as a sort of joke as a ground for annulment. The relevant law in Delaware is 13 Delaware Code Section 1506,
Court shall enter a
which
decree
includes this as a justification for annulment.
Yeah, go back. Oh, I can sort of see it. Oh. The court shall enter a decree of annual annulment a marriage entered into under any of the following circumstances.
Which includes this as a justification for annulment. One or both parties entered into the marriage as a jest or dare. Now, of course, the state requires some proof of the jest or dare in the petition for divorce or annulment for...
I was drunk. Reasonable to me. I was drunk, therefore I could not consent to signing the marriage contract.
Asks you to describe how and when you learned of the jest or dare. So, if you are married for decades with several children, don't expect the court to just rubber stamp your claim that you got married on a dare and it should be nullified. The right to get away with murder in Yellowstone National Park.
I'm just gonna let him cook.
Now, speaking of marriage, let's talk about murder. Have you ever... Have you ever fantasized about committing the perfect crime?
Glad I let him cook.
Michigan State law professor Brian Kalt certainly has. He wrote a law review article explaining how you can get away with murder in Yellowstone National Park. Kalt grounds his argument in the plain meaning of the Constitution. Although Yellowstone is mostly located in Wyoming, about 9% of the park is actually located in Montana, and an even smaller portion, about 50 square miles, is located in Idaho. Yellowstone was established in 1872, long before these states were added to the Union. And when the states were admitted, each ceded over exclusive jurisdiction of its portion of Yellowstone to the federal government. And both Article 1, Section 8 and federal law give give the federal government exclusive jurisdiction over Yellowstone National Park, and state law doesn't apply there. Later, when Congress created the federal district court for Wyoming, it placed the entire park under that jurisdiction. That means that things that happen in Montana and Idaho on park lands are within the Wyoming District Court's jurisdiction. However, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution requires that the trial be held in the state in which the crime was committed. This sets up the legal basis for getting away with murder if you commit a crime in Yellowstone National Park in Idaho. And moreover, the Sixth Amendment requires the impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. So theoretically, the only people available for the jury must live in the Idaho section of Yellowstone National Park. The thing is, no one lives on the 50 square miles of federal land that make up this zone in Idaho. So you can see how small that zone is on the map. And since no humans live there, only these Idaho otters can judge you. And this is why that area has been nicknamed the Zone of Death. The Wyoming Federal Court has jurisdiction, but if you want to go to trial, the Wyoming court simply doesn't have jurisdiction. And although Cult tried to get Congress to fix this loophole, they haven't done anything. Shocker. And that loophole still exists.
Okay. You step foot out of Idaho, you can now get arrested in whatever state for crossing state lines after committing a crime. Or step foot out of Yellowstone. I don't know which one it would be. But yeah, no, you do not do this. You do not do this because they will get your ass. And, if you do cross borders, it can be a federal thing. Which means the jury of your peers is United States. All around the United States, not just in your state. Because this also works on lower levels. If the county got you, your jury's most likely going to be county. I don't know about city, though.
So, if you want to visit the Idaho portion of Yellowstone National Park, Idaho is just dying to meet you. The right to run for governor of Kansas as a teen, dog, or resident of another state.
Oh!
Kansas, almost anyone.
I heard about this. I think I heard about this. The dog was running for governor. Governor Good Boy.
Can be governor. In Kansas, you can run for governor before you're even eligible to vote. The state has absolutely no qualifications for gubernatorial candidates. In 2018, 7 teenagers, all boys, ran for Kansas governor. The director of elections at the Kansas Secretary of State's office said, "There's seriously nothing on the books that lays out anything, no age, no residency, no experience, nothing." This was confirmed by Ballotpedia, the website which tracks all things related to state and federal offices. Ballotpedia concludes that Kansas's constitution does not set out requirements for office. Cool.
That means a virtual humanoid on the internet can become governor of Kansas. When is Kansas's next governmental race? Governor race?
Even a baby could run for governor. Someone alert Alec Baldwin about a possible extension of the Boss Baby cinematic universe.
I may look like a baby, but I was born all grown up.
This is amazing for many reasons, including the fact that former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach has spent the last 5 years stoking fears about mass voter fraud and championing extremely restrictive voter ID laws.
If it's not on the list, it doesn't exist.
In fact, Kobach briefly ran President Trump's election commission, which was supposed to prove that President Trump actually won the popular vote in 2016. The commission disbanded after it found...
Popular vote does not matter. Actually, I'm pretty sure most candidates who win popular vote don't get the presidency. The way the election is run is not for this video, because that's going into a whole nother can of worms.
No evidence of voter fraud. Kobach wanted it to be harder to vote, and he proposed a federal law requiring people to have proof of American citizenship when they showed up at the polls. But during his time as Secretary of State, he never made any recommendations about the state's non-existent requirements to run for governor. Kansas legislators immediately started discussing ways to clarify
Red Rack for governor of Kansas.
The law, but nothing stopped the election with the teens from moving forward. And there's also no residency requirement, so candidates from Vermont and New York threw their hats into the ring as well. It's not even clear that
That means people from outside the U.S. can become governor. Jesus fucking Christ.
Person has to be human to qualify for Kansas governor. The director of elections said that although no dog has ever attempted to run, there's no law specifically stating that a candidate has to be human. So Stella the Legal Beagle will be filing her paperwork for 2022. The right to write on U.S. currency. Speaking of good or bad government, let's talk about the U.S. Treasury, specifically money. Have you ever felt like...
Alright. I know where this misconception comes in that you can't do it. Legally, you can damage and write on government on your own money. Where it comes from is what they used to do, and this is also why quarters have the ridges around the rim, is they used to carve off the edge of the quarters, and you get quarters and other coins. And once you get enough shavings, you can melt them down into a new coin. Because coins weren't always as pristine as we did, so it would be easy to counterfeit them if you had enough material. So that's where it comes from, that you can't damage currency. Like if you accidentally, if you want to rip up a piece of money to use it as a magic trick or art or whatever, you are legally free to do that. Hell, you can even spend it. Why? As long as 51% of the bill is intact, you can use that 51%, but you cannot use the 49%.
Writing on money but worried about that pesky thing called a felony? Well, don't fret, because you've got a right to deface U.S. currency. The common belief that you can't write on or market bills is actually a misinterpretation of United States Code Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 17, Section 333, which states, whoever mutilates, cuts, defaces, disfigures, or perforates, or unites, or cements together, or does any other thing to any bank, bill, draft, note, or other evidence of debt issued by any national banking association or Federal Reserve Bank, or the Federal Reserve System, with intent to render such bank, bill, draft, note, or other evidence of debt unfit to be reissued, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned by not more than 6 months, or both. I did it. This crime boils down to intent. Did you intend to render the bill unfit to be reissued? If not, then no harm, no foul. It's not as if every time a bill has markings on it, it's removed from circulation. So feel free to draw a beard on Alexander Hamilton. It may be dumb, but you can still spend that $100 bill, y'all.
Alright, for the writing part, I'm pretty sure they just don't... I mean, the part where it's making it for art, I'm pretty sure they just don't enforce that. But I guess that if you can at least tell that it's supposed to be whatever bill it is, then you're fine.
When?
You might get it checked and might get rejected, which brings up a lawsuit for anyone who rejects it, but for not looking real. But you can use it.
Is a bill unfit if it's torn, dirty, limp, worn, or defaced? And according to the Federal Reserve, a bill is unfit if it has excessive holes, tears, tape, or excessive graffiti. So, a black eye on George Washington is probably okay, but a torn-in-half bill is probably not. Not that there's any reason why you should be tearing up your own money. Money's better when you can spend it. Hashtag not legal advice. Hashtag common sense. The right to give your children alcohol. Philosopher Willie...
This is a big one. Federally, the drinking age is 21. States have some control over this. You cannot buy or sell alcohol whenever you're under 21. But drinking it, if you have your... I know in Texas, it's like if you have your parents' consent, you can drink alcohol. And then I'm pretty sure every state has an exception for communion. And if they don't, they're going to get sued, since that's a First Amendment violation if they can't drink wine at communion. But
William Smith famously observed that parents just don't understand. But just because Carlton, Aunt Viv, and Uncle Phil were square doesn't mean that all parents are narcs. Massachusetts parents will absolutely fight for your right to party.
Chug, chuggy,
chug.
That's why the legal drinking age in Massachusetts is 21, and it's illegal to provide alcohol to minors unless they are your children or grandchildren.
Please excuse my parents' behavior. They ate a lot of paint chips growing up.
The Commonwealth's social host law makes it illegal to buy alcohol or host parties where underage people drink. However, there is an exception for the host children and grandchildren who may be served booze on the host's private property. And there's no age limit here, so if you want to give your toddler scotch, not...
Don't give your child scotch. Don't give your baby scotch. Do not. All that. Now that I'm thinking about it, that was an old thing that they used to do whenever you were teething.
Yourself out. Again, don't actually do that. Hashtag not legal advice. But this isn't quite as crazy as it sounds on its face. Some experts who advise state legislatures on responsible drinking say that prohibition just doesn't work and kids need to learn the right habits from their parents. Drinking alcohol with parents, quote, may help teach them responsible drinking habits or extinguish some of the novelty or...
That's only if the parents are responsible drinking.
...excitement of drinking. That's according to Dr. Christy Long-Foley at the School of Medicine at Wake Forest University. And Massachusetts is far from alone in permitting parents to make this decision. Other states let underage people drink too, like Alaska, California, Colorado, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Texas, Virginia, Washington, and Wyoming. Plus, in some places,
that's actually a lot more than I thought.
Before the legal drinking age, so 12 states say that you can drink with your spouse if you are under the age of 21. But when it comes to drinking, there's something special about Massachusetts. It is, not surprisingly, illegal to give someone alcohol or drugs if they're in a hospital suffering from an alcohol or drug-related problem. Unless the physician says it's okay.
What?
Because in Boston, doctors know that the best cure for a hangover is the hair of the dog that bit you. I know there's a Red Sox joke in there somewhere.
Wow, that is true. Don't develop a problem.
But since I'm not John Krasinski, despite what you read in the comments, I can confirm that the Red Sox are the worst. Just the worst. But you have the right to love them and the right to be wrong. But if you're a rational person who enjoys exercising their head as well as their freedoms, I explain one more extremely timely right you didn't know you had over on Nebula.
Yep. Alright. So like I said at the beginning, this thing is 3 years old. He no longer... Well, he might, but this video is irrelevant to his ad. So, no point in putting it. So, thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't. Subscribe to see more. Comment down what you learned today. And I'll see you guys next time. Probably on a How Our American Elections Work video. See ya! Peace.